Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. What you see here on the screen is a famous quote from a philosopher back in 1905, and that philosopher is named George Santayana. Santayana said this important phrase: "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." And this is not the first time we've heard this phrase. This man right here, for those who don't know, this is Winston Churchill. This guy said something very, very similar. His phrase was, "Those who repeat their history are doomed to repeat it." For those who don't know who Winston Churchill is, this is the Prime Minister of Great Britain back in 1940s, and he's also the man responsible for aiding and leading to the victory of the Second World War. Why am I bringing up Winston Churchill and why am I bringing up that phrase? In the YGO TCG, we are in a situation that we've faced numerous times in the past. I already made a video talking about how the 2015 format with Necros pretty much led to Konami making an imperative decision in the Forbidden Limited list. Now we're going to go even further. We're going into 2013. And for those who don't know, that is Dragon Rulers versus Spellbook format. Why am I bringing 2013? The reason I'm bringing up 2013 is because right now a lot of people are like, I'm not gonna say upset, but I'm going to say like disgruntled by a situation that we're having in the format. And that situation was very similar in 2013. As you can see here, this is from the official Konami blog. This is the round 11, because after this they doesn't show like any top index that performed in top 32 onwards. But these are some of the decks that were doing very well in top 64. You see here Dragon Rulers, Dragon Rulers, Dragon Rulers. You see Spellbooks right here. If we dwell a little bit further, we see like more Dragon Rulers, we see more Spellbooks. But if we see right here, we see a Madolche. And you're probably wondering, what is Madolche doing here? Like, in the top tables? Surely Madolche is not as strong as Dragon Rulers or as strong as Spellbooks were back then. This falls into the situation that we had very similar with how Ritual Beast and how Virtual World and how a few other decks that are not Snake Eye and that are not Jubel and not Tenpai just doing super well at events. And that is playing power cards and like floodgate cards that just aid winning the game. So like, this is nothing new. Like I'm saying this in this video, we've been seeing this trend happening with tier 0 formats for over a decade. Like, here's another card that the Madolche player played. This is Vanity's Emptiness. This card is already on the Forbidden list. Besides that, we have a Fed Veiler, we have Maxi, we have Thunder King Ryo. These are all really powerful, just like oppressive cards that just shut down the game if you summon them or if you play them in your strategy. And not only did Madolche do this and topped the North American Nationals, but we've had other national tops with other decks that did this as well. We had it with Constellars, we had it with Evil Swarm, we had it with speaking of Evil Swarm, this is another deck that also topped that event and was also doing very well. So the problem with and this is another deck that just does not let you play the game, like it, at least for certain specific decks. Um, so basically, we're in a trend where the decks that are doing well that are not tier 0 are those decks that are just heavily influenced into playing cards to be the tier 0 decks. The main difference is, instead of seeing Maxi, because Maxi is already forbidden, we are just seeing a lot of other hand traps besides just the Feb Veiler. It's funny how a Feb Veiler, even 12 years later, is still like doing its like intended duty, like on tier 0 formats. And we also have Vanity's Emptiness. Vanity's Emptiness is forbidden in here in TCG, but we have cards very similar to this, like Arch Nemesis Protos and Thunder Dragon Colossus. Just to give you a few examples, Dimension Shifter also fits into this rule. Um, so now that we know about these trends and how dominant Dragon Rulers and Spellbooks were back then, um, let's talk about what happened a little bit after that. This was the September, um, the September 1st, 2013 Forbidden and Limited list. Um, this card, for some reason, Dueling Book does not like upload like for the current ban list. I mean for that specific ban list whenever I do uploads, but please be worried. These were the actual cards that got hit on that list, and if you do the math, there are 47 cards that got rotated in this Forbidden Unlimited list. All the four like smaller Dragon Rulers all got forbidden, and you're probably thinking, well, Spellbook of Judgment and like the Dragon Rulers are just the only culprits that we have to worry about. There's no real reason why Konami has to address things other than the tier 0 decks, right? Well, as you can see here, Stratos, Card Discussion, Gateway of the Six, Heavy Storm. By the time of this recording, this card is still forbidden. Reborn, Avarice, Judgment, Rejuve, Sullen Judgment, and Alternate Offering, which is also forbidden to this day. All of these cards went into the forbidden list. We're talking about 12 cards that made it to the forbidden list. Was it 12? I think it's more. 14 cards were in the forbidden list. And that is a really big deal. Like, we are seeing people that are demanding for a nuclear ban list. This is a nuclear ban list. Atlantean Dragoons, Firefist Spirit. I want to preface this. Firefist Spirit was only TCG legal for less than 3 months, and this card made it into the forbidden list. We have Deep Sea Diva, which is tied to the Mermail strategy, which was the dominant deck before Dragon Rulers. Rescue Rabbit was from Dino Rabbit back in 2012. Mind August had weird FTK back before Ruler format, so this was basically a cleanup from then. And you start seeing here the Konami actually hit floodgates. They hit Dimensional Fissure, they hit Macrocosmos. This is a consistency hit for Fire Fist, which it was another meta deck. This was not even the best deck. This was like the second or third best deck of its time before the tier 0 approach. Because Stratos got forbidden, they freed A Hero Lives and Malicious. I think people who have been playing this game for a long time already know the meme behind Malicious just going back to 2 and 3 every few formats. Like Soul Drain was not even the best floodgate back then. You could argue that Skill Drain was a lot stronger, but it was also hit. There was no ways to search this card back then, and this card was used against the Spellbook deck. It was used by the Dragon Ruler players, but this card also got hit. Konami just basically made a stand when they showed like they just showed this. Now, the question I want to propose to everybody watching this video is, do we need a ban list like this? Is this the ban list that is going to save the game? Back then, Konami was very bold. This was the first ever TCG legal ban list. For those who don't know, prior to this list in 2013, our ban list was merged with the OCG, which led to Konami of the TCG to make a very big list like this, because they wanted the game to have a different philosophy than what it did in the OCG. OCG's hits were a lot more minimalistic than this one, so that actually led to like how these decks were performed back then. These trap cards, for those who don't know, prior to the Dragon Ruler format, or you can even say post Dragon Ruler format, normal traps were a staple in a lot of decks instead of hand traps. We didn't have a lot of hand traps back then, so basically we needed to use these trap cards as our utility interruptions in our strategy instead of just using our monsters as interruptions. And that's why these cards got hit back then. So yeah, basically we are repeating history again. We're in another situation where the tier 0 decks are just super dominant. Well, I'm not gonna say super dominant. Snake Eyes is a lot less impactful than Dragon Rulers was back on today, but the decks that are not Snake Eye, that are doing well for themselves, are decks that are playing just a lot of cards against Snake Eye. And it's kind of sad to see, because sometimes you just have to end up seeing rogue decks just play in a way that is very degenerate and a way that just very oppressive for the game. But you know, that's how it was back then on tier 0 formats. This is nothing new. And we already saw that with Necros format too. Like, Necros format had Clifford's Burning Abyss and had a lot of other strategies that also were doing just well. And at the end of the day, what Konami did on their list is they ended up hating those decks as collateral damage. So I think it comes to no surprise that outside of Tenpai Dragons and Jubel, I don't think we have that many other decks in the format that are in Konami's radar right now. But there are some decks that Konami eventually has to address, otherwise we're in for a rude awakening. I'm talking about decks like Gimmick Puppet, for example, decks like Runic Stun, decks like Labyrinth, decks that like Rescue Ace was doing well before Phantom Nightmare. Unchained is okay as a pure strategy. Actually, okay, before Infinite Forbidden, Unchained was actually bouncing back despite the Charvara limit. So, if we want to ever go back to the 20 plus deck format that we had last year, post Age of Overlord, we need a ban list like this one. We need a ban list that actually just hits a lot of cards, and most likely Konami needs to take the approach that they did with Fire Fist Spirit and just hit cards that got arrived to the game very recently. Because not only Fire Fist Spirit got hit, Spellbook of Judgment also got gutted, and this card also didn't last more than 2 formats. Like, these cards also didn't last more than 1 format. So this was a very aggressive list back in its time, and as of late, Konami has not done very heavy hits to tier 0 decks unless they have more than one format. We already saw that with tier limits. So yeah, I hope you found this video informative and to your liking and understanding. I just love talking about past formats and just drawing parallels to the current format that we have in like the TCG, because it kind of just helps teach people or those who are newer to the game or those who are unaware. This is not the first time we are dealing with this situation. And like like the famous phrase goes from Santana and from Winston Churchill, uh, this is just going to be something that's going to be repeatable again and again and again if we don't take precedence of it. But yeah, I hope you found this video informative to your liking and understanding. Once more, I'm rambling at this point. Stay tuned for probably more similar videos to this format, and yeah, keep practicing and keep dueling.